So what happens when it looks like we've heard something's changed, and our addiction, we don't seem to be doing our addictive behavior anymore, and then it comes back? Right? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
For me,
I think
doesn't mean we failed. We blown it.
yeah, no, I mean, that's the kind of like, if anyone's been, before they came to this understanding, if they've had a habit for a long time, or they've been around any recovery circles, or they've been to therapy, or they've been to 12 steps or something like that, even though there's come back, after you've kind of fallen off, the process, there's really a sense of failure in it. You can see that people feel like they failed, that, oh my God, I went back to it, I'm never going to be able to sort this out. So there's a real kind of stigma around the word relapse, or however you see it, or however you come back to it. But like, I was going to share a metaphor about this, and it was really about, I heard this quite a while ago, and I found it quite funny. And it was a case of, if you had been working at a job for many years, and it's kind of like, and you'd been traveling the same route to work, and going to this job, and then one day you decided to get a new job, and you got a new job, and you was driving to work, and you took a wrong turn and went to the old job. Does it mean that you still work at the old job? It's kind of like, no, it just means that you took a wrong turn, and you need to just get back on the road and carry on, and it's kind of like, that's as simple as I like to keep relapse, that it's like, from time to time, our experience looks real to us again, that transitory experience that we talked about, the coming and going, that it starts to look solid again, as mine did with talking about waiting for the complex solution about trauma. It started to look to me like there was a real thing for me to get, somewhere to get to other than where I was. In the same way, it might be for you, it might be bettering myself, improving something, getting what somewhere, getting it whatever way. It's so subtle, at times, and it's like things start to look real, and at that point experience starts to feel like like that again, and things happen, and it's kind of like, and then we wake up and we have the realization, oh, I fell back into that again. It's kind of, because once you've seen this stuff, you can't unsee it. It's kind of like, once you've took the lid off the can of worms, you can't put it back on, because there's always, like you said, there's a deeper truth going on here, something that is true, something that you've touched and felt and seen, beyond the words, beyond the intellect, a feeling of that, oh, that experience is not me, it's not my reality, I don't need to better myself, I am okay, that feeling of okayness. Once you've had a sense of that, it doesn't mean that you're I can't think of the word, like, you'll never have a relapse, it'll never change, you'll never go back to doing it. I mean, I've certainly done that. I've gone back to and done things again where I thought, why did I do that? It's kind of like, what was it? It's kind of like, but the thing is as well, because I have an understanding here of what it is, literally had no thinking about going back to that it was like, oh, well, it's done now.
The way I see that, it's like, as our levels of consciousness drop, like there's, as they drop, one of the characteristics of a dropping of level of dropping of our level of consciousness, mood, to put it in everyday terms, like, as our consciousness level of consciousness drops, then we become more self-conscious, and then that's when the need to prove or improve comes in. I either need to prove myself or I need to improve myself, and both of them imply a lack and a gap that we talked about before. All of a sudden there's a gap between, like, I've got to show everybody, like, who I am is just not enough, so I need to prove myself, or I need to improve myself or my circumstances. And then once that gap opens up, then we've got a habitual go-to. And for some of us it's social media, and some of us it's working too hard, and some of us it's, I don't know, sex or relationships or gambling or whatever. But it, again, makes total sense. It's like that's just our, like, it's our weak point, if you like. It's our go-to. But as our level of consciousness comes back up, we have the need to prove or improve falls away all on its own, and then therefore there's no alcohol required, no drugs required, no gambling required to fix. And so it doesn't surprise me that because our levels of consciousness go up and down, that we pick up old behaviors again. But it seems to me that over time, I don't know about your experience, Jason, but it seems to me over time that it's kind of like we go up and down, but in this direction.
Yeah.
We never go as low as we kind of did before, where there was no understanding, not even the faintest notion that we might be feeling or thinking, not even the idea of that, not even the slightest idea that we might be, that our addiction might be wisdom. We never even heard of that before. So we're just in it, drunk and crying, right? But as our understanding grows, we can still realize that we have compassion for ourselves, and we have you know, we become discouragement proof, and we recognize our own resilience and bounce back ability, and we see the lack of permanence in this low state of consciousness. So to my mind, we just come out of it faster. Like, I know when I'm on a addicted to adrenaline crazy working rush, like I recognize it, I see it in myself. Like I did that for like continually for years and years and years, just getting high off adrenaline for years and years and years, and totally oblivious to it until I burnt out. And now, like, I can get carried away with it, but I'm on to myself so much wiser. Like, I realize when my level of consciousness is shifting, and when I do indulge in it, which I do, right, do my like crazy whatever I do at work, but I realized that I bounce out of it quicker. I have a respect for that. I don't know if that's you know, my mind thinks it's more complicated than that with like really proper addictions like drugs and alcohol, but it's like my guess is it's the same, right? As your understanding grows.
Yeah, because the substance was never the issue, you know. So it's like you know, as you said, it's almost like a muscle that you can develop, you know, in some ways, that the more time you spend in wonder, in curiosity about life, you know, in knowing that who you really are, you know, knowing who I am, that I'm not the idea of me, that I'm not that created set of concepts, that I'm not the story of me from the past, you know, just literally knowing that, feeling that sense of knowing, and have, you know, experiencing joy and contentment. Then when I fall back into it, I'm kind of less inclined to think this means anything more than the fact that I've fallen back into it for a moment, you know. And it's kind of like, and still in those places, you know, when I'm reactive, when I'm feeling angry, when I'm caught up in something, you know, there's a place in me that goes, no, there's nothing to do, you know, this will pass, you know. It's kind of like that sense of knowing that, you know, because I've spent time in that place of knowing that it no longer makes sense to self-destruct. Because what's common on the subject of relapse is that people will eat one cake, take one drink, whatever it is, you know, and then go, fuck it, it's over with. You know, it's kind of like, I've done it now, I'm gone, I'm back on the path of self-destruction, you know. And it's almost, you know, like that belief that that's how it works, that once you've started, you can't stop, you know, is common to other ideas about addiction. So people have typically got that, oh, well, fuck it then. You know, it's kind of like, I've done it now, so I may as well, I've done it, so I may as well get the most of it. I've done it, so I may as well destruct more. I've done it, so I may as well carry on, whatever it is. But as we're talking in this understanding, when you've had a glimpse, you know, of living life free, living life in joy and contentment, in curious creation, having fun, having enjoyment, then when you have that, you think, oh, it's like, you know, going back to the snow globe, you know, it's kind of shook up at the moment, you know, like all I have to do is put it down on the table and leave it alone. And it's like, so when I'm in that place, which you know, very rarely happens for me now, you know, I can even speak, act be present as if it's not even happening. Just know it's there and that it will go away. You know, it's kind of like, even when I'm compelled, like as an example, I got really caught up in something the other day, and I had an email, and I really wanted to write one of them fuck you emails to someone, you know, and I found myself typing, thanks very much for letting me know, take care, you know, and it's like, but in my mind I was going, fuck you. And it was kind of like, because I knew that the feeling state I was in would pass, and that it was not really who I was.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like that, you know.
And the difference as well, I think, is, you know, I was thinking about this today, just this morning actually, is like when something happens, the next day it's gone. It's in the past. You don't need to think about it again. So instead, where it would be like you'd indulge in a behavior, but you know what I mean? Like you do your addictive thing. And then the next day, if you were speaking to a friend, they were like, how are you doing? Well, I was fine. But yesterday I did this awful thing and I feel really guilty and I feel really bad and I feel dreadful because it happened yesterday. I see it with my clients with panic attacks. That I had a panic attack yesterday, and now I'm really worried about the fact that I had a panic attack. I shouldn't be having panic attacks. And it's like, well, it's done and it's gone, and you can panic yourself right now in this moment about what happened yesterday, or you can see that it's gone and you get a clean slate. It's where is it? It's vanished. It was only made of thought. And it's like sitting here today and saying there was a hurricane yesterday and here it is. It's like, you can't, it's gone. And so what I've found over time is just that, like, I am so much more in the present, because who cares what I did yesterday? Like, I don't have to feel guilty. I don't have to beat myself up. I don't have to, it's happened and it's gone. And now I get to be clear-minded again. And that fresh start that you think you can only get to after 35 days of not doing your thing or whatever it is, right? Like, it's no, you get it every minute. It's a clean slate in your mind. And so what, that's something that you did your thing yesterday. It's like, we're here now. And that for me just means, and again, that comes with compassion. It comes with seeing the transient nature of thought. Like, it's gone, like really knowing that it's gone. So I live as if it's gone. I don't have to think about it. It just is gone for me today, whatever I did yesterday. And people, I guess people get scared because they think, well, if I don't keep beating myself up about it, then I'm going to, if I don't feel guilty about it, then I might just do it all the time and go, oh, well, never mind, that happened yesterday. And then I'll keep doing the behavior. And I guess the answer to that is that, well, when you're clear and you're present and you're here and you're now and you're in your life right now, that's the space for wisdom, that's the space for insight, that's the space for fresh thought, and that's the space for like in any given moment we can choose to spend that time lowering our mood and lowering our level of consciousness by thinking about what happened yesterday and taking ourselves down that level of consciousness where our behaviors are more likely to occur again, or not. and I tend to opt for or not these days, because I actually like enjoying my life. I like that. I know it sounds like a really weird thing to say, but you wouldn't have known that if you'd seen me years ago. You'd think that I enjoyed not liking my life, because I would spend so much time in anxious, scared thinking that the option of putting that down and actually just simply enjoying my life was just, it seems so obvious to me now. Well, I prefer to enjoy the next hour rather than ruin it for myself. Like, that just seems like common sense. But we were going to talk as well, Jason, about what, like what's possible, like what's happened for you, for example, like in your life in terms of creativity and fresh thought, and like as a result of this understanding. Because my guess is your life has changed from committing crimes, being in jail and trying to find ways to feed your addiction to something else. So tell us about something else, like what happens as a result of this.
Yeah, what a great subject. And I notice how much I smile these days, and I tell you, I did not used to smile at all.
Yeah.
One of the most common things that people ever said to me, do you never smile? You know, it was kind of like, because I really lived with that heaviness, you know, of life. And even after stopping taking drugs for many years, you know, and continuing, there was always, I used to describe it like plugging leaks, you know, like when you put your finger on and then the water comes out here, then you've got another finger, then you've got your elbow, then you put your head on it, you know, it's like, it was like one thing after another with me with addictions. And I was never happy, no matter how much therapy, no matter what I did. And you know, like now it's kind of like, I mean, that's a great point, because after you stop running around looking for the chocolate ice cream, right? After that stops becoming your main focus of life, like, oh, just stop this behavior, just stop this addiction, stop this thing. If I could only stop this, I could be happy. How much headspace that takes up and how much that separates you from seeing, you know, like when I first had my experience of, you know, that glimpse of my own mind quieting down and going, oh my God, it was like waking up out of a bad dream. It was literally like, where have I been? You know, like not knowingly, where have I been? How beautiful are is the grass. I was sat, there was this, it was at an Airbnb near Michael's in Woodland Hills, and there was like a big green at the back of this Airbnb, and there was a rope swing, and I was just sat on this swing at like 5 p.m. in the evening, the sun was going down, and I was going, wow, this is beautiful, you know, but I'd never noticed it before. I
Yeah.
hadn't seen that, you know, I hadn't seen the beauty of life. I hadn't felt that calmness and that sense of excitement about what was going to happen next. You know, it's going to, like, in a good way, you know, like not I was going to get more money, I was going to lose weight, I was going to get, you know, the next thing that was going to make me happy, but like just literally what was going to unfold next in my life. How was that going to be? And I don't know, that was like three years or more, I can't remember ago, but like um God, to the point where I get up like that every day, you know, like I'm mostly smiling. People comment all the time on like what's happened, you know, like people that I'd known for years, you know, it's like, how come you seem so different? And, you know, I stepped away from my traditional recovery. I'd been going to meetings for 2 decades, you know, calling myself an addict and saying, and that stuff, what you just talked about, you know, like thinking that if I didn't remember the past, if I didn't keep talking about my story as if it was who I was, if I didn't remember the struggles that I'd had, that something bad was going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
And I had, you know, like I'd said earlier, I kind of thought, oh wow, I feel so much better. But what about addiction? You know, it didn't come at first, that insight. I kind of saw it a bit afterwards, maybe about 6 months later it was, where I thought, I'm not an addict. I don't need to go to meetings. You know, I'm okay. I don't need to say I'm Jason, I'm an addict all the time. I don't need to write all this stuff about my past. I don't need to talk to people about what I did in order to make myself feel better. You know, I don't need to practice. I don't need to help. You know, I don't need to. I love helping people, but I don't need to do that in order just to make me okay. You know, it's kind of like I just literally woke up one day. That was it.
I love that. The
Wow.
simplicity of that insight. Like, like suddenly coming to your senses in the middle of a meeting, going, like, what am I doing here? I'm not even I'm not an addict. Like, why would I be here? And then like the idea of going to meetings if you're not an addict is just crazy, right? Why would you do that? And so you're free from all of that. All the accoutrements of being an addict vanish because you're not that.
Well, yeah, and that's just, I mean, like, and a couple of things about that. Everyone else around me was like, "Oh, really?" You
Yeah,
know, it's like, "Oh, well, wait and see what happens to you then." You know,
yeah,
it's kind of like, yeah, they're not around to see what's happening because it's so good. You know, it's kind of like they don't want to see that. You know, it's kind of like, but like that is the start. You know, that is the start of what's possible. That's the start of realizing the creative energy that runs through us, you know, that helps us show up to life and have fun and enjoy things and create new stuff and meet new people. And you know, my life is just full of adventure. You know, that's what I call it. It's just a crazy adventure called life, where I get to do fun things and I get to not do things that I don't want to do, and I get to choose, like you said, or not. I don't want
yeah.
that. You know, it's kind of like I just get to do the fun things. And um you know, from a
Gosh, that and just that, the difference between compelled to act in a certain way over and over and over again versus the freedom of I can do things or not as I want to. That's so simple. It's so free. There's so much space in that compared to the compulsion to repeat the same behavior over and over and over and over again. and really cool that the ice cream was in your hand when you were doing the compulsive behavior over and over again, and when you wake up today excited about life, like the ice cream never changed in all that time.
Yeah.
So that's the constant.
Absolutely, the constant. Yeah. And I just, you know, I know because I've seen that it's there and realized and had the experience, you know, from seeing how the principles work, you know, that I just kind of know and experience it more than what I did. Well, I mean, there's no, it's always how experience is created. I just didn't see it before, you know, and it's kind of like, and now I've seen it, like, I'm like, oh, you know, it's kind of like all sorts of new opportunities coming into life. And from that, I mean, like another distinct difference for me is that you know, like vibrational frequency as we show up to life, kind of fun and excited about that, like attracts so much into, you know, like difference into our lives. You know, it's kind of like the people that we connect with. For me, you know, like I'm having conversation with new people about business, about friendship, about, you know, all sorts of different types of relationships, coaching clients, friendships, you know, relationships, other things, you know, that are happening all the time. And it's like, literally, you know, I would be so insular before that. I would have relationships with no one. You know, I didn't want to go out, I didn't want to speak to people. You know, it was like I liked my own little world. But that's why I had an IT business, because I liked hiding behind a computer because I didn't have to speak to people. And
Yeah.
now I'm kind of like, you know, I have very little thinking about it. I reach out, make connections, and talk to people.
Yeah. And you know how I see that though, like even rather than like we're now open and we're present and all these things show up like in our lives, these opportunities. And to me it's more like, you know how we talk about when that thought is like we're a projector, not a camera.
Yeah.
Right, so we are creating an experience of life inside our minds, if you like, and then seeing it in front of us rather than there being a real solid truth, this nasty people and nice people and good opportunities and bad opportunities, and we just get to witness those like a camera. But instead we're generative, we're creating. And what it feels to me, the description you just gave, is like what this understanding does. It's like someone comes along in the cinema in the back room and they take out one projector reel and they just pop another one in. And this one had people to be scared about and scary circumstances and aggressive people and people who are mean and an unfair world and a frightening world in it that needs to be contended with. And with the understanding, what happens, like someone pops a new reel in and it just looks like suddenly the movie that's being portrayed in front of you has got kind people in it and people you'd actually want to hang out with, and your relatives just look more handsome, and your partner looks more attractive, and your kids look better behaved, and new work opportunities appear. And that's because we're a projector, not a camera. So what this understanding does, it's like you don't have to change the reel, it gets changed for you. And then the world that you're navigating in front of your eyes is a million miles away from the one that you had 6 months ago or 5 minutes ago. And that to me, like understanding that the reels just keep new reel, life looks crap today, right? New reel, life looks amazing today, and yet nothing's really changed, but it all looks different. And that to me is like, as we are in this conversation, they're just more and more beautiful reels that get put in over time. And then you get a dud one, right? Like one where it just looks like everything's crap today. And then that one gets shifted out, and a more beautiful one and a more beautiful one. But we're always in that direction of more health, more beauty, more wonderful, more kindness, more love, more joy, more opportunity, more freedom, more or like in the direction of health. Always. And there's no end to it. That's what excites me. It's like there's no limit, there's no upper limit, because our understanding can always deepen, we can always be more deeply impacted by the conversation. And so there's no end to the reels. They go on for infinity, for our whole lives.
Yeah, and that's when you know the difference between the technique and how like you said, nothing's changed, but everything's different. You know, it's kind of like there's a real felt sense of understanding. You know, there's a real felt sense of connection to life, of being present and being curious. It's just a completely different experience.
I think that for each of us in this conversation, there's something that life has a way of trying to wake us up, and it uses whatever we'll listen to bring us here. And so for some people it's health problems, and some people it's anxiety, and some people it's panic attacks, and some people it's addiction. And I don't know about you, Jason, but I am so grateful for how fucked up I was. that was the reason I bumped into this. You know, like, who knows whether we would have come here otherwise? Who knows? Impossible to tell. But to me, I'm incredibly grateful that the struggles that I've had have been so severe, so strong, if you like, that I got woken up to this conversation.
Yeah, and I'd love to add, you know, that's why I said, you know, earlier on, and it might make more sense at this point in the conversation, that addiction is the path to enlightenment. You know, I'd love a better word than enlightenment, awakening, whatever you want to call it, you know, like to just seeing the truth of who you are. But if you're a seeker, you know, if it feels like you're looking for something because you're struggling with something, then keep looking, you know, because to me, I had so much judgment of seeking, you know, spiritual seeking, seeking for something outside of myself. And it's exactly the point is what you said, you know, that, you know, our true nature has a way of pointing us back to it, you know, like of who the truth of who we really are, you know, and it may come in the form of addiction or whatever, but it's kind of like all we're really seeking is to return home. You know, that's when, like when I had that experience, when I was sat on that rope swing there, I knew in that moment, after 40 years of searching, that there was no more searching. I knew, you know, I literally thought, that is it. The search is over. You know, it's kind of like, I knew, you know, I was like, but like in every other thing I'd done, I was kind of like, yeah, it was okay, but like, give me a short respite, or maybe even made me worse, or didn't seem like the answer. But I knew, you know, there was something in me in a deep place that thought, I understand this. You know, I can't put words to it yet. I don't know what it is, but I can just tell from the feeling deep inside of me that like I'd found what it was that I was seeking, you know?
Yeah.